There we go. Cool. Thanks. So, hey, I'll introduce myself and a little bit of Joe, and we'll tell you about who we are, what we're doing, and hopefully we can help you guys out with some things that we found success with over the last year and couple months as we've switched into a more remote, web-based, cloud-based culture, not being able to hug someone every single day in the same office. Some of our culture key points that we've got, it's on a little thing here. I'll just read it off. It's relentlessness, empowerment, commitment, united, lifelong learner, trustworthy, and unique. I did those fast, so I'll explain them really quick while Joe's thinking about how he'll give you that little catch-up of how the Delia Group evolved over the last couple years. So when we hire in people or when we decide to partnership with people, we definitely hire to a culture, and that's one of the things that's helped us sustain being that culture in a remote environment, is that we hire people that are relentless. So for us, over the last year, that's mean like relentlessly adapting to a constantly changing environment. Our coworkers and our management and all the people that we work with at the Delia Group are definitely empowered to get things done, to take care of that client, to make that phone call, or to change something if they need to, without having to constantly check with others within a certain scope. They're committed to the team and the client satisfaction and experience, and we're all united in that we're in this together. So it's something that we do impact somebody else on the team. And we're a lifelong learner. Where we're at now is not where the business is going to be in the next 3, 4, 5 years. So it's not necessarily what worked in the past, works now, will work in the future. It's how can we adapt to make it better, streamline the process for both our coworkers and our clients. And trustworthy. We trust that somebody's got it, and we trust that our clients understand that we are grateful for their trust and they're willing to take them through the journey of home ownership, whether that's buying or selling. And unique. It's one of our key points for our culture. And unique, we've got definitely some unique people on the team. We wouldn't be really good at what we do if we weren't a little unique in our own way. But so that's a quick rundown on our culture. And then I guess for the format wise, we'll just have Joe run you through a little development and evolution of the Delia Group. And then I'll give you some of the tips for how we've been operating remote. I've got like my 6 tips for how to survive working at home or remote. And then I got a couple other cool things. We'll take some questions. Does that sound like good format?
Yeah.
All right, roll on.
So when we first, I got into real estate, being a realtor in 2014 full time, and spent my first year at a local brokerage in Rochester. Kind of hit a lid, and my first year I was the 5th highest producing realtor in the brokerage, and they had like 4 offices at the time. And I just wanted more, and Keller Williams had all the top agents in the state, so I figured success leaves clues. If all the top producers are at one brokerage, they probably know something that I don't, so I'm just going to go there and find out more about it, right? So joined KW in 2015 February, and joined the Royal Oak office actually. And one of the things that was kind of unique is they were bursting at the seams, and they didn't have any space for us in the brokerage. So even though we joined, they didn't have an office for us. You know, I think they offered me a broom closet or something, but that was the extent of it. So long story short, I sold 50 houses my first year in 2014, which is the average realtor sells 8. Not in their first year, just in general. So it was a pretty successful first year. And then the second year we went from 50 to 194, and we went from just myself, then my wife and I, to like 10 people that next year, maybe 12. And what we had to do, because they didn't have any space for us in the brokerage, we had to create like kind of a remote culture, because we didn't have a place for everyone to go to. So a lot of the time people worked out of their house, and a lot of times they worked out of my house. And we just have everyone show up at my house, and we would get to work. And we knew we didn't have a ton of space, so we couldn't have a lot of people coming into the house consistently. So we hired some virtual assistants out of the Philippines to work with my wife and do a lot of like data input and you know, just routine stuff. They're really good at the routine stuff, you know, where it's just kind of transfer information type stuff. So we ended up getting up to like 4 virtual assistants at one point, with my wife working with them. And eventually we did get space in the office. We actually did end up in the copy room at one point next to the printer, even though we were the number 2 team in that brokerage. But we were always tight on space. We've been tight on space the whole time. So we've had to understand how to create a cloud-based atmosphere, because that's just the circumstances we were dealt with. And we also do a lot of business with Quicken, and they were sending us business all over the place. So all over Southeast Michigan. I know my first year I did 48 buyers in 7 different counties. So from Attica to Flat Rock to South Lyon to St. Clair Shores, I was going all over the place. I've never been too busy for a paycheck. So I always like to say yes when people ask me to do business with them. And so we had to be remote because we had to hire people that were spread out, and asking someone to drive from Grosse Pointe to Rochester every day is a fairly big ask, especially when they have to work nights and weekends a lot, being a realtor. So we had to create that atmosphere. And so we kept growing. I had the opportunity to buy the Keller Williams Rochester and Troy brokerage in 2017. And so at that point, we decided we were going to move what we call our hub to Rochester. But at that point, we were in Northville, Royal Oak, Rochester, and Troy. And so we were spread out. So we had to create this online atmosphere, and we had our virtual assistants in the Philippines. And so we learned a lot of lessons along the way. You know, a business that expands quickly, especially with someone, you know, I'd been in business for myself since I was 19. If you guys remember in Rochester back in the early 2000s, there were student painter signs canvassing this entire city, and then they disappeared for a while. The reason is I blanketed the city so much that actually the police showed up at student painters headquarters and told them any more signs in Rochester, the owner's going to jail. So I had to stop that. And so, you know, since 19, I've been working for myself and being in business. We did pretty well with that. We did most of those houses at Tinkin and DeQuinder, when all the big ones back then, when they were all being turned over to needed to be painted. On Miners Run, we did 11 houses at one. We had 11 signs in the yard at one time, which was pretty cool. So I've been in business for myself for a long time. And so when we had the opportunity to buy KW in Rochester, we were already spread out all over the place. And I knew asking people to drive that type of distance to Rochester just wasn't going to work. So one of the great things my wife's done is she was a project manager for General Electric, doing Six Sigma. She actually had, she was a serving master black belt for Six Sigma, if you're familiar with it, when she left General Electric, which is the highest designation you can get for Six Sigma, which is basically lean engineering and lean processing. So being really good with systems and processes, long story short. And so one of the great things she did is, because we had those virtual assistants, is we work a lot off Google Drive, Google Sheets, Google everything. Now you can do Google Hangout, right? Or Google Meet, it's called now. And a lot of our systems and processes, because we were spread out so far, were done through Google Forms, Google Sheets, all those things, because our agents are in the field, and meanwhile our operations staff are either at their home or at our office. So we had to create an atmosphere of being cloud-based. When I had the opportunity to get into business with Chris, he was working for a team on the west side of the state. You know, we had already been down this cloud-based business, and it was kind of outlandish to think someone who's 2 hours away would make a good director of lead gen, but we had already done this cloud-based thing. And I always felt like if we can create a really, really strong cloud-based business, that means our pool of talent isn't people that are within, most people want to live within 15 minutes of their work. If I can create their work being in the cloud, then we have access. I mean, if we have a really good person out of California, in theory, it could work, right? And so your pool of talent opens up like crazy when you can work in the cloud. You can have someone who lives in Grand Rapids be your director of lead gen. And so one of the things we learned through that process, and Chris hit on earlier, culture. So all the core values that he outlined there are all they're the culture mnemonics. So committed, united, learning based, trustworthy, relentless. I'm probably spelling it wrong. Learning based, trustworthy, unique, relentless, and empowered. That's the culture mnemonic, right? And so I learned this from a very successful guy, Keller Williams. He said, whenever you're looking to get into business with someone or get into a business relationship, you filter all opportunities through 3 sets of filters. The first filter is, do they match your culture, right? And so a lot of people have a really hard time outlining You know, what are your core values? A lot of people, you know, they're going to kind of dance around it because they know what it is internally. They have a hard time articulating it. And it really takes unless you spend a lot of time on it, it's kind of a difficult thing to outline what your core values are. But if you ask someone what they're not, if I say, hey, what do you stand against? And what is not your core values? People will pick that up real quick and get after it, right? So they'll be able to tell you, hey, listen, you never have to worry about me stealing from you. You know, I don't take a long time to get back to you, right? They're going to start laying out all these different things that they're not very quickly. And so what you do essentially is you take what they're not, and usually there's a lot of things that are similar when they start saying what they're not, clump it together and use the opposite of that, right? And now you've come up with basically what your core values are. And so when we go to get into business with someone or have a business-to-business relationship, I want to understand that they live those same core values. And so that's a big piece. That's the first filter of any relationship is, do these people share the same core values? Because if we share the same core values, we're going to give each other the benefit of the doubt, right? And if we give each other the benefit of the doubt, usually that relationship's going to turn out pretty well. But if you're dealing with someone that you have mismatched core values with, you're usually, they're guilty until proven innocent, right? And you're not giving them that benefit of the doubt, which is really tough to be in business, close business with someone like that, or really any business with someone that you don't believe what they're saying, or you can't trust what they're telling you is true, right? And so the first filter for us is always our core values. Do we hear them used empowering words, or do we hear that their last 4 bosses all screwed them over and you know, woe is me, and victim language, right? So do we hear victim language coming out? Because chances are, if you've ever worked took advantage of you, you're going to feel we're going to do the same thing, right? And so we pay very close attention to the words people use. Are they using empowered language or victim language? Do they share the same core values we do? And we use that as our first filter. And, you know, that's on the phone screening. Keller Williams is a systems and processes company. That's what I love about it. And we have a whole screening sheet, and it talks about, what did you like about your last job? What did you not like? What was your relationship with your leadership, right? And you'll hear empowered words coming out of that, or you'll hear victim words. So that's our first filter. Our second filter is, hey, we may share the same core values, but I want to go here and you want to go there. So even though, you know, we match from a core values perspective, we're not on the same path, right? We're not on the same road. We're not on the same path. We don't believe in the same things. One of the things when I was talking with Chris about coming on to be our director of lead gen, we had a very similar vision around what we felt the business could do from a remote-based culture and being able to expand into multiple locations. So like right now, we're starting to play with listing some homes in Grand Rapids, and we're also in the process of expanding to Ann Arbor, right? So even though our hub is in theory in Rochester, though that could be argued now, I mean, now truly our hub's in the cloud. COVID, you know, we used to get together in Rochester like 4 days a week, just our back-end operations team. Now I haven't seen these people besides in passing in, you know, 90 days, right? Or whatever it's been. It probably has been at least 90 days, right? March, and we're in late June now, so maybe it's more. So, you know, we're truly operating in the cloud. So yeah, vision's the second one. Are we all on the same page vision-wise? And then third is, do they show up every single day in the way we want them to? So vision, and then, the numbers, right? The numbers, right? Do the numbers work out? Most people, when they look at getting into business with someone, they're going to start with the numbers. But I can tell you, if you get into a relationship with someone who you share core values with, that want to go to the same place as you, you can find a way to make the numbers work. There's a lot of different ways to do that. But if someone shares core values with you and you want to go to the same place, usually both parties are going to be a lot more apt to make sure that the numbers work for each other, right? And create a win-win circumstance. So those are the 3 filters we work with. And because of that remote-based culture, we have a mortgage company right now. My wife's the branch manager of. I mean, we've cleared. It's in our second year. We've cleared $63 million in volume year to date out of our branch, and that's with 5 loan officers, one of which I've never even met. I talked to her on the phone, but I've never met her. My wife's never met her. You know, and everybody works for their house for the most part. We have a spot for people to go and work should they want to, But it allows you to create that atmosphere and culture of being able to jump into different businesses and then expand from there, right? And because we have that, when Chris and I talk, we try to talk on FaceTime. When we're doing meetings, we do Google Meet, right? And we try to have cameras on, right? Because communication is very much body language and tonality is the majority of it. Words is only 8% of communication. Body language is actually over half, and the remainder is tonality. So if you can do video, it makes a big difference because they're getting your body language. They're, over the phone, you still have tonality and words, but you've reduced it down to tonality and words when you're on the phone. When you have video like we're doing right now, you have body language, which makes a big difference. So we always try to use that all the time too, and it allows you to expand into a bunch of different businesses. Like I don't have to drive into the office. I don't have to get ready every single day now, right? I mean, I did put on a collared shirt today, so I feel.
When Joe was in the office, he was when you were in the office. There's one time you said to me, Chris, I saw you more today than anybody that was in the office. Because
that's 100% the truth. So,
I kept jumping around different monitors.
Yeah. So funny story is I'd be walking around on our floor. We were on the second floor of our office. And I hung up with him on Google Meet, and then I walked into the office next door, and he was on his next meeting with our ISA team, right? And it's like, oh, there's Chris again, right? And then I come around, oh, there's Chris again, right? So I saw him more than I saw any of our agents because Chris was on monitors, right, as we moved around the office. So there's definitely a way to do it, to do a remote-based culture. I think you have to be more intentional about creating collisions where culture can connect. Yeah, that was just kind of off the cuff there. So, Chris, what's the next bullet point?
I got a couple points, and I'll give you my. So one of the cool things when they brought me in is this is pre-COVID, mind you. So I'm like, hey, I'm working remote. I'm coming over there once every couple weeks. I'm visiting it. I'm learning all about Rochester. I'm seeing it in the winter. I'm seeing it in the summer. I'm walking around the park. I'm eating. They're showing me all the cool restaurants. And so how do we connect things virtually with culture and still have a local presence at the same time? So how do we target our advertising? How do we target our people? How do we spotlight the community events that you're having? So those have been the great challenges and opportunities that we've had along the same way. So hitting the points here real quick. Joe already talked to hiring to culture and staying adaptable as you go. When COVID hit, we had already offered virtual buyers consultations or listing consultations via FaceTime or video or Hangout or whatever, because we were targeting people that wanted to move to Rochester from outside of Rochester. So it's something we already offered. We already had the structure for it. We already had the technology for it. It's just, it was fortunate when COVID happened and we couldn't meet with clients in person anymore that, oh, now we've just got to use this all the time, right? And I think we signed over something like 100 buyers, a couple dozen sellers remotely. We were selling houses almost sight unseen unless it was the inspection, where other agents were just like, yeah, we can't do anything. We can't show houses. We can't go anywhere. We just adapted quickly, fortunately, because we were already based on that cloud and remote, and we were empowered to do so. That's one of the greatest things that drew me to the team was that empowerment factor. But so hire to culture, FaceTime is the go-to. So that's our first mode of conversation. So instead of calling somebody, can I FaceTime them? And I'm still using this with some of my clients here on the Grand Rapids side and any of my coworkers on the Detroit side. It's a, hey, Siri, FaceTime so-and-so. And I'm doing my meetings via FaceTime. And then, hey, I need to ask my wife. Great. Oh, my Siri's blinking at me now because I said the words. So, and I can actually bring in, so when someone's like, hey, I got to check with my wife. Great, hang on. Add it into FaceTime. Now I've got both of you no matter where you are. And we can hammer it out and get things a lot faster and a lot smoother, get everybody on the same page. Connect to your people. So we're using everything from FaceTime, Google Meet, Slack, group text, chats, Facebook platforms, meeting rooms, Zoom. If it's there, adapt to it, use it because somebody's using it or doesn't know about something else. The other key component we had, especially when COVID started, was as leaders in the industry and in your community, you have to be visible. So one of the things I got from the military, leaders need to be seen. It doesn't even matter if you have the solutions or if you feel like you're going to be leading them through this great, turmoil of COVID. As long as you're still visible and offering assistance, even if you're visibly saying like, hey, I don't know what we're going to do next, but we're going to do it all together and we're going to survive. Like that visibility, rather than not being visible, even if it's not in the office, is the key component that gets your group to travel through whatever that new turmoil or new opportunity is. Be seen as a leader. Another couple little things that we did for our team across the state is I mailed a lot of little stuff, like hey, you're working from home now, so you need a webcam, or you need a new vertical mouse, or you need your phone dies because you're now on FaceTiming all the time, so your phone's going to get nuked in about 30 minutes versus running all day. So I send you a little phone dock that you plug in your office. So I think I mailed. Well, Ashley's in this call. Justin's. I mailed like little things, even if it was a funny coffee mug, to some of my coworkers and some of my other clients and stuff like that through the mail. Just then, like, hey, I got this. Oh, that's cool. I can see it in your video. And it worked out really well. So that little personal touch where I couldn't make the trip anymore over there once COVID started hitting. And then we built like almost the whole thing on Google, so it doesn't cost a whole lot in order to get techie. But so there's that's the quick rundown of what I had for working remote. I have my 6 top tips from working from home. Unless you had anything you wanted to add into there, Joe.
Yeah, so one of the cool things about working on Google is, and as we're seeing right now, and I think we're on Zoom right now, but I mean, they're basically the same thing, is you can record very easily, which is, you said that earlier. So you can record it very easy. So if you put on a training, if you were trying to record a training in your office, it's going to require a lot more work than if you just do it over the computer with somebody and you record it in real time and as the slides, and you're sharing slides and stuff. So it allows you to chop up video and interviews real simply through doing online stuff and that people can watch. I know Justin, our director of sales, said one of our agents said they were nervous to present in front of him, but they weren't nervous to present in front of friends and family. And he said, great, your next friends and family presentation, just record it, and then we can watch it together and I'll coach you on that, right? So there's a lot of advantages to doing the online piece because the recording aspect makes things easy to capture it and then scale it, right? So you can chop it up for pieces and then use that for training and the rest of it. So yeah, there's a lot of reasons to go cloud. There's a lot of reasons not to stay physically based, right? So we want to be virtually based, physically enhanced. The world's pivoting to that. Look at Amazon, right? The whole world's pivoting to virtually based, physically enhanced, moving from physically based to virtually enhanced, right? So
yeah, that's the great question that killed like things like Barnes & Noble, right? So Barnes & Noble at one point had the e-reader that was better than Amazon's. They had the what is it, Kindle or something? And they said, how little can we do digitally and how much can we do physically? Big stores, big network, and Amazon is how much can we do digitally and how little can we do physically? And so the great questions are now, how can we do this digitally? How could we meet with a client digitally? How could we make their service and their experience better in any way?
Well, and if you look what's pulling different businesses to the bottom of the ocean through COVID is their rent, right? Rent's pulling them to the bottom of the ocean. No one's going in these buildings. Look at how many, Bar Louie closed. There's a lot of, art vans going under or went under. I heard Gorman's is going under. I just read Chuck E. Cheese is going under, right? Why is that? These businesses had to pay rent through all this time. So if you can stay virtually based, you're going to be able to stay lean and mean. Keller Williams, Gary Keller uses this as the analogy of a meteor. This is a meteor hit the U.S., right? And we've established a blueprint. So thinking about into the future and thinking of the past, the government never bailed out any company until they bailed out Ford in the 50s. And then now they bail out companies like crazy. Once the blueprint got established, it gets repetition happens often. Right, so we've now established the blueprint of what happens the next time a meteor hits, and that meteor could be anything. It could be another pandemic. It could be anything. Who knows, right? And so they're going to revert back to this playbook of shutting everything down again the next time stuff like this happens. So you've got to keep that in mind. Stay lean, stay mean for your business, and fixed expenses are the devil. And so rent is one of those. So if you can stay lean and mean and stay away from the fixed expenses and get cloud-based, you're going to be able to keep your business going.
Yeah. And we already have an art van guy. And if any of you know anybody in any of those businesses that are going down looking for a change and looking to help out the community.
Yeah, salespeople are good in real estate. But yeah, lean and mean's a big deal. If these retail shops had a really large online presence, if you look at who's actually competing with Amazon at a pretty high level, it's Target and it's Walmart. They already have the distribution network, right? And they already have the warehousing. They already have everything. Now they just had to learn how to distribute it online versus just physically based. And those companies are contending with Amazon at this point. Whereas if you would have gone backwards like 3 years, you would have thought they'd be dead in the water, right? And so it's because they've been able to pivot. And so everybody has to do the same thing. Yeah, Ashley mentioned grocery stores, same thing. Look at Kroger. I mean, Kroger, between ClickList and deliveries, I mean, you could almost not even get it, or you'd only get a fraction of your stuff through COVID, right? So, but because everybody was utilizing these services. So what happened because of COVID is the world got fast forwarded by 5 to 10 years. We would have all been in this place 5 years from now, but because of COVID, the fast forward button got hit. And maybe it's 10 years, depending on the aspect or medium that we're talking about. So being cloud-based is the future. It's just how fast do you want to adapt to it?
Yeah, that adaptation takes a little bit too. So I want to leave some room for questions too at the end. But I have my 6 tips that I've learned for working from home for like the last year. You guys want some of those?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, here we go. And these are, I'm going to quiz Ashley real quick, because I'm curious if she knows. Ashley, what's the #1 rule for working from home? What's the first one?
Self-care.
Boom. All right, she got it. Because Ashley's great. She works with me. If you live in Rochester, she called you at some point in time over the last year. Inbound sales associate. She's a pro at setting up our clients with the right agent to get the job done for whatever their need is. So shameless plug to Ashley. If you need to buy, sell, or invest in real estate, she's your girl.
Sir.
All right, so my self-care is the first one. You can't take care of others unless you take care of yourself. Just like being on an airplane, you put your own oxygen mask on first before you take care of others. And when I first started working from home, my self-care laxed a little bit. And I just last week, I was telling my team, like, this is the first time ever I've worn shorts, like when I work, even like it's different. Nobody can tell because it's at a desk. It's warm out, but you got to take care of yourself. Still get up in the morning, still shower, still do your hair, still look good. When I first started working from home pre-COVID, I actually drove somewhere to get coffee and then drove back to my home office so that I felt like I went to work. So take care of yourself, put your pants on. That's the first rule from working from home or working from remote. She got him. All right. Anytime I see somebody really laugh, I like it. All right, keep to your schedule and follow your time blocks. And if you continually see yourself blowing your deadlines, blowing your time blocks, reevaluate what you have to get done and reevaluate your time blocks for what actually works with your new routine. If you find yourself with kids or dogs or whatever running around and you still got to get work done, so shuffle that in so you have the great work-life counterbalance. And then, so #1 is self-care. #2 is set the schedule and follow it. #3 is build a space or a bunker that you can also disconnect from. So I have my own little home office now, and I have a certain pair of shoes that I put on and a certain, coffee mug that I just use at the desk. And I have this is my desk stuff, this is my work stuff. When I take off the shoes, when I shut down the monitors, I don't touch this thing when I'm not working. So I come to work, I do my work, I sit in the same chair, I wear the same, I call them my office shoes, and I do my office things. And then when I'm not, I can disconnect from it. Because it's still in my house, and I still walk by it, and I still see it. But for me, the disconnection part is harder than the actual staying focused in. But getting that environment right, getting your sound right, getting your lighting right, all that helps to get you locked into getting your actual work done in your workspace. So #1 is self-care, follow your schedule, and then build your bunker. #4 is get the tech right. You can be low tech and still get it done right. But if people can't see you and hear you, they're not going to engage with you very well. So a well-lit area. When I first started, I was in a little basement, in my own little office bunker, and I bought one of those like daylights, or you get a little LED grow light. Just saying. But your body knows that it's light, and if you're inside of a room with no windows, like I have right now, you start to get that effect where your body's like, it's nighttime. You should be depressed. And now that I've got the daylight, and now that I've got windows in my workspace, I'm much happier, and I can get stuff done. I can look outside, I can be semi-distracted, but see, Ashley's in front of her window right now. So that has been a big changer, is lights and sound. People need to see you and hear you. And if you have to sacrifice something, your camera can be a little bit blurry as long as your sound can be clear. Wait, see, I got the mic on. So that helps when I'm FaceTiming. I've got my phone dock in, so my phone doesn't die. Everything's docked and set up. Multiple screens has been a great one. But those are the really big things. Then just learn the new technology. If something's new, you got to so tip #5 is stay adaptive, and #6 is go where the client is. Those things kind of go together. So if your client's on Facebook Messenger, do Facebook Messenger, invite that video conference. If your client just wants to text you, oh, I'm texting you. If they want to FaceTime all the time, offer that. Like, hey, if you want to FaceTime real quick, cool. Now FaceTime's the only time I call you. Go where your client is. If they just want to email, that's where you are now. You can be anywhere your client is on any platform with just a little bit of research on how it operates. So
yeah, now there's no more of this awkward, like when you go to meet someone at Panera and you're like, hey, I'm wearing this jacket, or hey, are you Joe? No, I'm not Joe. Oops, sorry, I thought you were Joe, right? Like none of that has to exist. You just hop on Google Meet and you can chat and get to know people. And especially when you're a realtor or a loan officer or someone who's dealing with the general public or about to go in an empty house with them, getting to know them over video is probably a good idea versus meeting them at a random empty house that and you don't know them, right? So it's also safety precautions when you're dealing with the general public like that. You can
also speed up your productivity. You can meet with 4 people in an hour via video versus driving to one place and meeting one person for 20 minutes and then driving around. So we still continue to offer that.
You, right? Then you're driving back. There's a lot of good reasons to do it. And there's not very many not good reasons to not be cloud-based.
Dude, I'm glad this has afforded us the opportunity to do it. So there, I dropped them in the chat. Again, it's really quick. It's self-care, do the schedule, build the bunker, get your tech right, stay adaptive, and go where your clients are virtually. Those are the quick rundown on my tips that I've learned for success from working from home in a remote office for the last year. And then I think I'll double check to see if Joe's got anything else. Otherwise, we'll see if we missed anything, and then we'll open it up for questions.
No, that's it for me.
Oh, someone said the chaos. Yeah, if you look back here, I've got a little puppy sleeping in the corner. I got the COVID puppy. He's sleeping, so I definitely grab him every once in a while. But life still happens.
Chris's therapy animal.
Life still happens even when you're working at home. So,
Chris, tell them the story about when you first started, how you would trick yourself into every morning that you were going to the office, even though you were going to your house.
Oh, with the coffee? I mentioned that real quick. I might have said it fast. But I'd go somewhere to get coffee and then come back to my office so that I felt like I went to work. For me, that was an adjustment.
That story. That's a good one.
Yeah,
I have a question.
Oh, Ashley's got a question.
How do you bounce back when, say, a portion of the way through your day and you've got a ton of work to get done and you totally get thrown off by life, kids, dogs? How do you reset? How do you bring yourself back and pick up your day and accomplish what you need to accomplish?
Joe, what do you got?
I'm just gonna be candid. I'm not a mom, right? So I'm not sought after nearly the way moms are, right? So, Lou pulls at Renee a lot more than he pulls at me. So, I don't want to pretend to understand what it's like to be a mom and constantly be needed by everybody. I joke, everybody wants a piece of mom, right? Kids, mom, dad, dogs. I mean, you name it. Everybody wants a piece of mom, and so I think that's tough. I think it's tough to be a mom, a working mom. But you just got to figure out whatever works for you is really what it boils down to. I mean, sometimes I'll just shut it down, right? Like if something really throws me off, I just shut it down unless there's I'll just suffer through whatever I have to do. And then I shut it down and I'll just go find a different day where I'll work on it. I'm not afraid.
Joe's also really clear on what he needs to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like what you need to do is still up there, and every time you get distracted or when you get back around, you're like, okay, what are the things I need absolutely positively have to do in priority? And then
there's a difference between what has to get done and what you want to get done, right? So I'm always going to get what has to get done, and suffer through it in order to get it done. But sometimes I may just decide to tap out and then I'll just work Saturday morning instead, right? I just move my schedule around.
We were at the Keller Williams event in Texas. See, perfect example right there. Perfect. She made it. All right. So one of the things that one of the things that killed me at family reunion we went to in Texas for the Keller Williams event is the gal was like, work will always be there. You only get like, what'd she say, 13 or 14 summers with your kid, and that's all there is. And I was like, oh. So it got me pretty good. So anytime my kid's like, hey, we got to go outside real quick, like I make sure I've got the kid time in there, but I make sure that gets taken care of as well as work at the same time.
Yeah, I think you can
I
also
make a
schedule
deal
good
with
time,
myself.
right? Like you leave your office, like you understand your gaps in your meeting, so you pop out. You know, I know Renee did a great job of this before she had an infant attached to her, and she's still doing a great job of it. But where she's scheduled to go have lunch with Lou, right? So he got a little mom time for lunch for a period of time, and then she rotated back in, right? So it just means okay. So if you took an hour in the middle of the day, it just means maybe you're going to be working an hour later as a result. But you just moved your time around, right? You didn't rob from anything. You just moved it. And so, like I said, I don't pretend to be a lady and be a mom. I mean, it's a whole different ball game than being dad. So you can pull that in a lot of different ways. But I do think there are ways to manage both. And you got to create your bunker, like Chris said. I mean, I know a lot of times Renee locked the door, you know, and just can't get in, you know. And
Ashley's over there like, and
yeah.
it's one of the
I
great
know
things
it's
I
not
learned.
always possible, but I have seen her do that, right? And so, and I did it too, right? You know, when I was working upstairs, as you can tell probably, when I was working upstairs, early COVID days, I actually took our fire, whatever that thing, gate in front of the fireplace, and I put it in the hallway. So he had obstacles he had to try and work his way through if he was going to come to us. So I think there's ways to bunker up if you need to.
Also, just make a deal with yourself. If you are going to take the time off, like commit to whatever time you're coming back, and just have that in your mindset, in your head, that, hey, okay, I'm taking this time off, and at 3:30 I'm back on and I'm rocking, and just have that mindset, right? And that's what I do.
So what I hear you saying is, first, knock out your biggest obstacle first thing in the morning, and second, be fluid, be able to move your schedule around throughout the day, and third, allow life to happen, because nobody can stop life.
Gary talks about this all the time. He says you get your biggest rocks done first thing, right? So you take your, you know, whatever if you're a spiritual person, you do your, you know, you read the Bible, you do whatever first thing in the morning. You work out, make sure you get a sweat first thing in the morning. You do any reflection or reading first thing in the morning. You knock all those things out, so then by noon, the chaos can take over, right? So as long as you got the biggest things you need to get done first thing in the morning, and eat the frog. Right? The whole book, Eat the Frog. As long as you eat that frog first thing in the morning before chaos reigns. And that's why a lot of the most successful people in the world wake up at 4 and 5 in the morning. There's no one to disturb you at that hour. So you get all your biggest rocks done, and then you let the chaos take over in the afternoon, evenings, right? So, yeah.
I just have one question. Well, and I see Ashley said hashtag 5 a.m. club. I am on the opposite of the Ashley hashtag, because 5 a.m. is not something I like to see in my everyday life. I cry a little bit inside if that happens. There are days where we have to be adaptable, but I find that I work best in the middle of the day. And it has been amazing to me to see the transformation in my personality from that extra 45 minutes for my commute, 40 to 45 minutes, that I can still get ready and look presentable for Zoom meetings and so forth, but not have that stressful drive into work. This, amongst other things, I've also found that I'm more productive. I've also found that there is less drama in the workplace, because there's less of this, you know, let's go into so-and-so's office and do this and that. So if you have do you have any advice on things that manner maybe that I could present things that I've noticed that somebody in my position, now obviously I work at a credit union, tellers cannot work remote, we need somebody there, but people in my position can work remotely. How do you present that to somebody that maybe as open to that, other generations maybe that wasn't even an option? So how do you present that in a positive way, other than sending an awesome presentation that you guys just did?
Yeah. I would ask questions. I would ask questions first. Like, is it important that what's the most important thing for me to get my job done? Right. Like, if I get these things done, we call them big rocks, or 20%, right? Like, you know, the 80% are things that don't necessarily matter, but we'd like to see people do. The 20% are stuff that if don't get done, like we're going to part ways of being in business together. Right. So if I'm able to accomplish it at a high level, all of these 20% items, first, I need to identify them. Right. Second, if I'm able to accomplish them all from at home, I mean, I would think any leader would be all about getting the things that need to get done. Where you do them necessarily should be irrelevant. And I'll just
Absolutely.
be super candid with this. If people aren't on board with that, find somewhere where they are. I mean, I don't know what else to say.
For sure. And to your point too, ask Ashley how she did converting, like, because when we started offering video stuff, there's some people that have never videoed before in their life. Like, what do you mean there's a FaceTime feature on my phone, right? So, like, she ran into tons of people that had never, like, COVID, what do you mean? What's a video? And so it was a whole adjustment for a whole bunch of people, but we offered what was ever easier. At the time, it was Google Meet because you didn't need to install an app necessarily. So identify what you need to do, just like Joe said, and then find a couple different ways that you could achieve that at no cost.
Yeah,
and
I took some extra time to just teach them how to do it. And once they learned, same thing with agents on our team, they were scared of, they're like, I don't want to do video, I don't look good on camera. And we found out that it wasn't unwillingness to do it, it was fear of the technology. I think Justin was able to zero in on that really quickly. If you just take a little extra time and slow down a little bit to educate, coach, and teach, then they feel more comfortable and safer in that environment, and then they fly.
That's an opportunity to build rapport and to position yourself as an expert. Even if you totally just spent someone teaching someone how to do something online, not even related to your business, you're now the expert, you're now the coach, you're now the guide. Story brand, right? So now I can guide you. If I can guide you through that and we've connected, I can guide you through the rest of our business together.
Yeah, anyone who knows how to operate an iPhone is more tech savvy than just about anybody in the history of mankind, right? So, I mean, if you know how to manipulate your phone, you're dealing with a computer that, 20 years ago would have been the most powerful computer in the world, right? So, they know how to use technology. Very few people don't know how to use technology. They just have technology reluctance around learning something new. They do it only when they're forced. So I deal with this with our mortgage company. The guys that own it are probably in their mid 60s, and they know technology. They just don't want to slow down to learn what I'm trying to have them do, which is like, instead of hopping on the phone, let's do Google Meet, because I haven't seen them in a long time, right? And so I just have to slow down and show them. And once they showed them, I mean, we had the same conversation because they're like, man, how are we going to manage our underwriters? How are we going to manage our leadership team through COVID and the rest of the stuff? So I told them, I kind of coached them up on how to run a remote culture. And it doesn't take that long. I mean, if you can send a meeting invite, all you got to do is click Google Meet on top of that, right? It's not that difficult. It's just slowing down for the literally 3 minutes to learn what to click. And then once you've done that, I mean, every computer comes with a webcam at this point. It's not like it's advanced technology. So it doesn't take that much. It's literally just hand holding. And once they're comfortable with that, then they might be more comfortable getting back to the point. Then they might be more comfortable with people working from home once they understand how you can still connect face to face. So
I would also want to suggest, Ashley, put together a proposal with different options on how to do it. Maybe you come in the office 1 day a week. Maybe it's a 3-month pilot program. I did this at my last company, and that just shows that you're taking the initiative, you're presenting solutions instead of problems, and that really increases your credibility. So that's another thing to consider, is just creating a proposal to present to leadership about, the benefits of it, as well as different options. That way, if they're not totally on board, they can go with maybe your lower level option that has you still coming into the office a couple of days a week, and then transition you to completely remote. I'm sure the guys have, tons of experience just even starting off remotely. I want to ask Chris, you mentioned sending little sending gifts to your employees and keeping them engaged. What are some type of things that you've utilized to engage your employees? And it just seems easy to me to gift an Amazon thing to an employee, right? Or like a wedding registry. I did that recently. So what are some things that you have creatively used to engage and thank and appreciate your employees for working through this difficulty?
Well, you got to know who they are and what they do, both in and work and out of work. So I FaceTime them both on the clock and off the clock a little bit. So you build the rapport as well as the work culture. Once you kind of know who they are, then all their needs are going to be unique. What's better to you, a coffee mug you didn't need, or you complained about, oh, your wrist hurts because you're working at this different desk, and so an ergonomical mouse would be amazing, and so. I think that's what I did for Ashley, right? I sent her one of these new little vertical mouses so that her wrist wasn't hurting all day or something. And she was like, it's the best. And then like some kid smashed it. And I sent her another one. Like that one little like thing has more impact than something generic. So it's finding out that unique thing that they need specifically. And then I had Anshu, whose phone kept dying. So I sent her some phone cords, and I got her like a phone dock so she could just dock her phone on the desk. I've got a little phone dock sitting over here. Like that to me was the biggest thing when I started working from home, is like, how do I keep my power? How do I keep my headsets? And it's all, for me, also selfish because it increases their productivity, right? So like, even just like something simple where it just slams in and now I can FaceTime and it keeps power all the time. Like that, to me, increases productivity. To them, they're like, oh, Chris loves and cares about me, which is also true. But
yeah, and a lot of people don't slow down to spend the the $10 or the 30 seconds to buy the item to make them double as efficient. It's always, when I see people working at a desk without a mouse, I'm just like, I mean, come on, why would you slow your input down? You're going to be sitting there for 8 hours, right? Like, get a mouse. Oh, well, on my trackpad, I'm just as fast. No, you're not. No, you're not. Right? Like,
multiple monitors.
It's not possible.
Headsets. Ashley's got the same
monitor, right? Like, a second monitor is so easy. They're $100 and an HDMI cord, and you're good to go. Right? Like, there's just too many easy things to do to make you more productive. And if they're unwilling to spend the money on themselves, I mean, I'm okay shelling out the $100 to get people to be faster. Yeah.
And these are people that match your culture, right? So they're showing up, they're doing the best they can, and just that little bit would make them happy and make them a little bit better, right? So it's not just like, I'm not pushing someone, like they're pulling me, right? They're pulling me ahead. I didn't give them this to get something. They showed up, they performed, they did amazingly well. I need to take care of that. I need to acknowledge that. I need to see that. That needs to be, thanked for at the same time. So I hope that answered your question. Any other questions? I know we're running into like the last 5 minutes. You can type them in.
Just a comment from Ashley I want to share in the chat box. I work 10 times harder when I feel valued. And that is just a well-known scientific, almost scientific fact that employees who feel appreciated and valued do have higher productivity. So that's really cool, the different ways you encourage your employees to stay engaged and just connect with your business, stay motivated, work through technological difficulties. We really appreciate your expertise and everything you've shared today. So with that, I think is there any last minute questions before we go? We're doing great. All right. Thank you everyone for being here. Thank you, Chris and Joe, for presenting today. It was awesome. I know a lot of the feedback in the chat has been really great. Thank you so much, Chris and Joe of the Delia Group, Keller Williams. So we hope to see you at Coffee Talk tomorrow, along with many other chamber events coming. So have a wonderful guys. Appreciate it. Work day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye, Lynn. Bye, Michelle.
Bye. See ya.